Race.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly. Miller's just like trouble. He's left on second and change.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the TX Jordan GR86 series here at the Tanso Racing Group. It's time for round 3, and the circuit that will certainly be the longest all season long. The Nordschleife here at the end of July as we kick off another season of the GR86 series. Very much looking forward to this after a great opening couple of rounds. First of all at Navarra, second of all at the Oschersleben circuit as well. It's myself, Ewan O'Leary, and Jez Parpet alongside me here for this broadcast, pre-recorded, of course. And welcome along, James. Good to have you with me. A very, very long circuit indeed. Over 20 kilometres round here, and that is going to make it a very different races compared to the ones we've had before.
Yeah, they're looking for anybody who can't convert 20.83 kilometres to miles. It's just shy of 13 miles, 12.944. It's about 154 corners, depending on how you count. I'm not saying you don't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but depending on, as we know with certain American circuits, Mr. O'Leary, that I know you love, the numbers of 10A, 10B, 10C and all that. There's lots of different corners in here, but it's about 154. We are at the end of qualifying. We're just waiting for the grid to come up as we got about 15 seconds left. Now, we do have the scores sitting in the system waiting to show at the end, so we will bring you up the championship tables at the end as well. But this is going to be very interesting. There's 24 cars on track. There's a couple of new people as well. This could be a good one for some, and possibly a rough one for others.
Yeah, let's see. 20-minute first race, as always, after this qualifying session that we've had. And then we will have the 25-minute race, second race after that one. Top 6 reverse grid, as always. And that always provides some interest as we look through this event. So we get things into the first race. Sorry, I'm just being corrected. It's 25-minute first race as well as the second race. So 3 laps for both should be, because it's a very, very long circuit. Some of these drivers indeed, may have even had a lot of practice in the recent past at the Nürburgring in this car, because, don't forget, the iRacing Nürburgring 24 Hours used this car as its slowest class. The Nürburgring 24 Hours in real life, of course, synonymous with sort of very low-level production-based cars to race alongside the proper race car GT3s. Well, we're not using the same layout that they would have used on that day quite, because we're not going onto the Grand Prix circuit. We are still using the GR86, and we are still using the full Nordschleife, which will be very interesting to see as we go through this opening race. And indeed the second race. But the top 6 reverse grid does remain, and I am looking forward to seeing what type of race we get here. Sometimes, especially in these cars or the Mazda MX-5s or similar, you get races that very much stay very close together, almost like NASCAR Super Speedway racing, where the front group is those that are contending for the win, and it all goes down on the back straight on the very final lap. Sometimes also you get a runaway driver at the front of the field dominating to a victory. So I wonder which of those two scenarios we're going to get this time.
I think it's going to be interesting to see, because we see in other cars the draft is so strong down the Dottinger Hoe, and I'd be interested to know and see how it is in the GR86s. They're not kind of aerodynamic. They're kind of a smaller TCR. They very much remind me of a little Mustang almost. So I'd be interested to see how they get on. But here's the grid for race 1.
Yeah, Scott McFall is the opening driver on the front row, first in the championship, first in the order, ahead of Daniel Wareham and Mark Brown. Then it's the first of the Pro-Am, Scott Brown, Peter Duke and Rumine rounding out the first 3 rows. Alan McCain next alongside Neil Kennedy. Lee Rylands and Nilton Carvalho making his first appearance of the season, starting in 10th. Tim Walters and Terry Atkinson are on the front row of the AMs, ahead of Callum Milam and Chris Barnes. Ryan Dudley will be disappointed with 15th, ahead of Adrian Hadfield, with Peter Woodmore and Shane Bellinger on row 9. Stephen Parker and Michael Elms round out the top 20, with John Johnston and Anthony Jones on the next row. Lee Sadler and Scott Bell round out the 24 drivers we have on the grid. Well, it's a very full grid indeed, as you mentioned before, James. It's a short run down in towards turn 1. It's a standing start, but because we've got such a big grid, the back-end drivers are actually round the final bend, which is not very normal, but they are on this occasion for the 12 rows to make up this field. Scott McFall had a brilliant Oschersleben. He'll be hoping to have a brilliant time at the Nordschleife as well. We get things underway on the run down towards turn 1. It's already going to be McFall with the lead. It's a very, very short run indeed, and so he barely has to brake for the first corner. Then it's Wareham, and then in third place Mark Brown, ahead of Scott Brown in 4th position. There's been a couple of problems further back. Adrian Hadfield has got off the road, I'm afraid, down further back in the field. The AM's very much fighting tooth and nail into the first couple of corners. In fact, Hadfield didn't even make the first corner before he'd gone off the road. At the front of the Anfield, though, Tim Walters has already made up 3 places overall, and that's got him ahead of Atkinson, and indeed has got Neil Kennedy between himself and Atkinson on this opening lap.
Yeah, Peter Woodmore had a little bit of a moment as well, unfortunately off the start line, so he's dropped back a little bit as well. He's all the way down in 18th, but as I say that, there's more there. Nilton Carvalho. Oh dear me. Nilton Carvalho, Scott Bell, and I believe that may have been Chris Barnes also involved in the opening incident at that corner as well. So yeah, rough start for some here, but the Nords is just that as well. You're not driving the people around you with Nords, and this is what I think people forget. You're driving the circuit itself, and the circuit is very tough as Scott McFall and Dan Wareham go side by side.
This is the kind of thing that it produces. If there's not a breakaway leader, there's lots of side-by-side to be had and lots of draft as well. They'll pull in it just in time for Arenberg as it's side-by-side for the lead in Pro-Am as well. As Brown holds on to the lead, Alan McCain goes through, Rumine does as well. As Peter Duke goes wide, that's going to ruin his run down the hill.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most trickiest corners as well, down into Arenberg. It's got to be, you've got to get it cemented and get it stopped early. The problem is as soon as you start applying the brakes, you end up getting very, very loose on the car. And I wasn't surprised that people went off at Arenberg. I was kind of expecting that to happen with just the nature of the circuit. But I think overall, everybody's kind of doing okay. You know, they've got to get this first lap out of way. And as I found out the other day driving at Nords, I was in the Renault Clio at the time, the car needs that time to settle down. It needs that time to get warm up, otherwise you just cannot get it stopped down into some of these corners.
It's a pretty similar car actually to drive around here, the Renault Clio, I'd imagine, just a little bit faster than these Toyota GR86s. Side by side in the mid-pack here. This is for the lower end of the top 10, but the higher end of the Anfield, as Tim Walters tries to hang on to the lead there. Ryan Dudley has had a disaster. Oh, Damon, speaking of disaster, Ryan Dudley, maybe that explains why he qualified so far down. Be careful, rejoining. Just in front of Shane Bellinger, who did a good job to avoid. And now look at the group that Dudley's going to find himself in. Michael Elms is now at the front of it. He rips round the outside of him into this chicane. What a group this is, by the way, but not where Ryan Dudley wanted to find himself.
No, he's mixing it up down with the AMs. Ryan Dudley, the Steve Parker, Hamilton, Anthony Jones, John Johnston, Peter Woodmore, all there as well. Chris Barnes is trying to come right through as they're side by side. Oh, Peter Woodmore.
Wow.
Around he goes. Oh, there's another one.
Oh dear! Oh, and another
dearie me.
three involved. Field had to go through it all. Callum Milam gets through it all as well. It's Lee Sadler. Yeah, he's last in the field now, but he jumps back to pit lane, as, by the way, I'm sure you've noticed Newton Carvalho did as well in the pro field. There's the split. We've got Scott McFall leading in pro, Ruminet's leading in pro-am, and Tim Walters is leading in am. We've got, I think, Michael Elms off the road again here, have we?
Yeah, and
no,
Woodmore
we've got
again.
Adrian Hadfield off, though, just in behind Woodcombe. Peter Woodcombe, who's Peter Woodmore, excuse me, who is getting to a very slow start again, but it is uphill, and these cars are not very powerful. These are the leaders in Pro-Am then. Ruminate, Brown and Duke on the way up the hill. This is a very long section, by the way. Not a straight, but it is flat out all the way up, and it's uphill, which means that those behind can really benefit from a slipstream, and there goes Scott Brown reinstating his lead in Pro-Am.
Yeah, Peter Duke's tucked in right behind that. You've got Neil Kennedy trying to chase them down as well. Very interesting situation here because this set of corners is very, very tricky. Yay, 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 yay. Peter Duke over Rumenegg there as well. That could have gone worse.
Could have gone worse for sure. Peter Duke's finding himself down the inside there just before the carousel, of course. Probably the most famous corner on the Nürburgring Nordschleife. The banking, of course, famous around the world. And on board we go with Chris Barnes to experience it on board for the first time here. There it is. You can't really see the entry until you're quite late, but spot your braking point and then sort of hook your left side tyres right down low there. It's not like NASCAR where you're looking up high for a bit of speed on an oval. It's about staying very much towards the bottom and making sure you don't pop out the other side, because otherwise you will lose places very, very quickly indeed. Into the highest point on the circuit then. This is Horax. We go back to, well, there's exactly
that's
the...
example, yeah, that's what
exactly
I was waiting
why,
for.
Yeah, Peter Woodmore going wide. Adrian Hadford going straight through. It's surprising how much slower it is actually up top there compared to using the banking.
Yeah, I think that's one. Oh, Michael Elms!
How he saved that, I'm not sure. I thought he was going straight into the wall. And by the way, further back, I don't think whoever was behind him did quite save it. Anthony Jones getting back going from the spin, but somehow he's got away without hitting really anything either. There's changes up front as well, by the way. Scott McFall's got a bigger gap now. Mark Brown's now second. I think Daniel Warehams made a mistake because he is a couple of seconds further back now.
Yeah, he's been off the side of the circuit, unfortunately, for Dan Wareham. There's a battle in the arms here. Tim Waters, that's Lee Rylands in front of us with Atkinson behind. Tim there from the Sonova Bro Racing team is leading the arms at the moment, but he has got Terry Atkinson, who's giving him a whole heap of trouble at a very fast part of the circuit. They want to try and keep it as straight as possible. Down on the accelerator they go. They're going to look for the braking point on the left-hand side. Just on the left now, there's a little bit of dirt you can pick up and use it as a braking point, and obviously a lot of the time round Nords as well, you're using the graffiti on the floor as a braking point, which sounds weird, but there's not a lot else that you can pick up at times.
Oh, it's been in front of them. Good avoidance. It's Stephen Parker Hamilton. Oh, excuse me. It's Neil Kennedy, excuse me. Stephen Parker Hamilton went off the road at the same time there, but it was Neil Kennedy who dropped from 4th to 5th in Pro-Am. Ryan Dudley having to make his way through on all sorts of drivers now in Pro. He really needs to get back further towards the front so that by the end of the race and by the top 6 are reversed, he can be somewhat near them. So we're about 8 minutes in. Now, 25-minute race, as we mentioned, but these lap times are suggesting that we might get 4 laps here rather than 3, unless I'm mistaken, but we'll wait and see on that front. Here goes Lee Rylands, and who overtake Tim Walters here. It looks like, he's finding this a bit difficult. Doesn't quite have the legs under the Bilstein Bridge here.
Atkinson does.
Yeah, certainly does. Look at that, double slipstream, 3 wide. Decides that's not a very good idea, and he's probably right, as they all single file themselves out into the Tirgon and the end of the opening lap. So first lap time's complete, and the lap time's about 8 minutes long. 3 times 8 is only 24, so looks like we're going to get 4 laps twice.
Well, yeah, depending on obviously if anything happens. Rumenig's gone into the pit lane there, so I'm not entirely sure why he would have gone into the pits at the end of lap 1. I'm hoping it's just a little a drive-through or repairs done, but he is back out on the race circuit again, still holding that third place. Walters, though, doing a great job against Lee Rylands. Rylands does make it round the outside, job done for him. So we'll see what happens in the battle on the AMs between Walters and Atkinson here. And just this onboard, some of these corners in these cars, oh man, they're really quite sketchy. I was watching the practice session and there was a good few drivers that had a good few problems.
Yeah, we did. It's a difficult circuit, we can't deny that, even in these slow cars. I mean, they're pretty much the slowest cars that go around here generally, in iRacing as well as real life. Not least because they're one of the slowest cars in the service, actually. But yeah, it doesn't make it any easier at times, it feels. And so, certainly what we're contending with here today. Don't forget, once again, this is a pre-recorded broadcast, so don't, if you're in YouTube chat at the moment and we're not interacting with you, I'm sorry, but we can't tell the future, and we can't tell what you're saying yet. So
I can
apologise for that.
I can.
Of course, we will do as usual when we go back to live broadcasting again. But yes, don't forget, this is a pre-recorded broadcast a couple of days after
get it stopped,
the race itself.
Stopped, Atkins. Oh man, that is just rough. I can say one thing. Good evening, Phil. There as well, and obviously anybody from the Tanso Discord, but mainly Phil. Good evening, Phil. Hope you're well. That's about it, really. Come on.
I think the scenes, if he doesn't come in YouTube chat now, it'd be quite embarrassing for us. But
yeah, you're right.
Let's hope so. Let's hope he's there. Meanwhile, this is the most numerous battle on the circuit. It's for 12th place, involving mostly pro-AMs, but one AM as well. Stephen Parker Hamilton is actually breaking away from most of his other AM competitors. Currently running up in third in the AMs standings in this race. In the overall AM standings, he's only been at one of the rounds. He was only at Navarra. He wasn't there last week for the Nordschleife round, so has dropped to 7th in the standings. But will move up here if he continues on this run. Shane Bellinger didn't get a very good run out of Adnar Forst there at the top of the hill, and so Parker Hamilton will go through on the outside indeed into Metzgertsfeld and moves up to 14th overall.
Yeah, he's done a great job there. There was a mistake from Bellinger, and Parker Hamilton just said, well, thanks very much for that, I'm going to capitalise. He's looking very quick as Hamilton. It looks like he might have even had the legs on Kennedy here with Barnes in front. I'll be if Hamilton can clear Kennedy, I'll be interested to see how far he gets. He's trying to get up to Atkinson. It looks like Ryan Dudley may have just had a moment as well. He did come up bright red there, so possibly he might have had another moment, but he's had a rough one as Ryan Dudley, 6th in class at the moment, 11th overall, so not going too well for Mr. Dudley. We've got Walters and Atkinson still battling it out in the AMs. The front kind of 8 in front of them are very spread out. They've gone about and done their business. Michael Elms looks like he's just had another moment as well, but Atkinson, yeah, Atkinson putting on a good fight.
Brown just went a bit wide through Bergberg there. That's the worst corner on the circuit, I would argue, to get it wrong, maybe other than Galvenkopf, right before the Dottinger Hurt, right at the very end of the track. But other than that, Bergberg is a disastrous place to have it off track. It wasn't a huge problem. I think he just dipped his wheels off, to be honest, into the grass. But look at how it's affecting him. He's still losing time. Look at the gap between himself and Wareham. It's coming down and down and down and down, and it will continue right there. And I mean, visibly, he's just quicker at the moment, Wareham, because he got a better run out of Bergberg, and now he's almost in slipstream range. That's exactly what Wareham wants to see here. And so the two of them, for second place, are going to have a battle again, all behind Scott McFall, of course, who is the championship leader, and at the moment is extending his championship lead to his nearest rival, Ryan Dudley, hand over fist. To everybody else, he's extending it quite quickly as well. As we go back to Lee Ryland, another one of the pro drivers, he's struggling to get through at the moment, and indeed he's going to be overtaken by the AM leader, is he not quite? Terry Atkinson, putting pressure on him for 9th place.
Yeah, they have. They've been swapping places a couple of times here as well, but these guys seems to be just... It looks like Rylands just hasn't got the pace to stay in front of the likes of Walters, to stay in front of Atkinson when he does get through. And I think this is the problem with Nord. You can be really slow in the kind of the middle section, but you've got that long run down into Arenberg. You've got the Dottinger Ho as well, which again is another long straightaway that you can make up time. So although Rylands might be overall quicker by the time they get onto the dot and the hoe, he's just a sitting duck because they come back through again on the draft. It's a very difficult circuit to know where to overtake, when to overtake.
There's a big slide from Lee Rylands there at the top at Horact. And he's had an even bigger one now. Into the wall, in fact. Down at Horact, he needs to get out of the way and just about does as best as he can. But there's a long train of cars coming up here. Now he might be able to go. There's a bit of a gap back to Michael Elms. Oh, just bounces off the wall. Don't get yourself stuck in the Armco. Reverse.
Stay there.
Needs to reverse. He doesn't have reverse. Well, he's still... there we go. Got reverse. Now he's got going.
Oh,
so,
blimey.
Lee Rylands back on the circuit again. Not before Anthony Jones overtakes, though.
And John Johnston.
And on the outside, John Johnston. On the outside, very nearly getting into an incident on himself there. And just in front, Anthony Jones goes for a spin. There's a lot of incidents going around at the moment, but that's exactly what this circuit brings.
Yeah, and this is why when we talk about it, we turn around and say, you've got to race the circuit, not the people around you. You've got to make sure you're hitting every single point on the brake markers you've got. Otherwise, it's all going to go wrong. What's the other thing you want to do? Stay off them curbs. Boy, oh boy, are they ferocious. You've got to stay off them. Wareham closing in on Brown now, quite a rapid rate of knots. And they're going to be on the dot and the hoe very soon.
Yeah, they are. Scott McFall stretching out a more than 4-second lead here. And Mark Brown and Daniel Wareham, who are driving well themselves, but just not as quickly as Scott McFall from the looks of things at the moment. They go out onto the back straight now. Meanwhile, there's been a change for the AM lead. Terry Atkinson back ahead of Tim Walters. I think that was into Strawberry Scratch, but here goes Dan Wareham, and now he goes for the push. So these are the games that get played on the Dottinger on the back straight of the Nordschleife. When you're on your own and you're Scott McFall here, you can't do anything about this. Don't forget they started the straight about 4.5 seconds back. They've already gained half a second. They might gain another half before they get to the end, maybe not quite that much, but look at the gains they can make by working together here, and that's exactly what Daniel Wareham and Mark Brown have agreed to do.
Yeah, I don't know if that's right. I got a funny because the pushing I get, right? You know, we do a lot of NASCAR, we see it all the time, and I understand that. But Dan Wareham looks quicker than Mark when you get into the main part of the racetrack, and I don't know if Mark's going to have enough pace to keep Dan behind, or they're going to try and swap in a very difficult part of the circuit that you just don't want to swap. So. Yeah, I think, although that was great, but I think as soon as they went under the Bilston, Mark should have pulled over, let Wareham go, because I think you're probably going to start seeing a gap going back out again now than what it was.
Yep. So, I agree. I mean, the bump drafting itself, I think, is a good idea, but then just as you get to the end of the straight, as you say, Wareham should have pulled out the slipstream, gone for it, and I think this would have gone a lot quicker with them in that order. But then again, Brown's showing himself to be pretty good through this first sector of the lap on the Hatstone back, as meanwhile we go back to 17th overall. Peter Woodmore, who is just ahead of Callum Marlam now. He's been making some progress through the field. Then it's Scott Bell, then John Johnston, and it's the pit lane for Callum Marlam.
Yeah, I thought he'd stacked it in the I don't know. I thought so. It could be possible, because he did look a little bit loose coming through the last couple of corners, but he's just going straight through. So whether or not that's just a drive-through penalty. John Johnston stops at the end there as well. We've got, Ryan Dudley and Terry Atkinson.
Well, it's split apart, unfortunately, the leading battle in AM, because Terry Atkinson's been involved in an incident. Stephen Parker Hamilton's flying, by the way, but he's going to run out of time, I think, to be honest, to get up into first position.
I don't know. There he
goes through Flugplatz. Disaster for Terry Atkinson, though. He drops to third, excuse me.
Yeah, well, obviously happened with Dudley has gone on there. Barnes looked like, I thought he had a little bit of a moment. Maybe he was just slow around the corner. This is the problem. What did they get it down to? 3.3. What are they out to now? Nearly 4. They should have swapped.
Wareham's got a chance to do it here. He's got a better line through Adenauer Forest, and he's got to go now if he wants to. No, he's pushing again. He's got faith in Mark Brown, but I think he's got too much faith that he can catch Scott McFall here. Maybe he's just resigned to the fact that they're not going to win this race. So Wareham might as well push Brown around the lap, and then on the very last lap, on the last straight of the lap, go for the overtake. This is the final lap, as you can see, by the way, with the white flag. Go for the overtake on the final lap, and just sort of forget about the race win, because they're not going to catch him anyway.
But how far could Wareham have got? That's the thing.
Far enough.
Yeah, maybe. You might be right, but I'm just saying, how far could he have got if it was swapped over where we suggested they swap? I think, you know, obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing for myself and you, and obviously we're never going to know. But at the same time, I do wonder whether or not they should have swapped to see how far Wareham could have got. Because again, Alan McCain.
Yeah, gone for a spin down at just before Exmuller. This is the sort of chicane before Exmuller, the siphon. This is, and so he gets going again, but is very comfortable in fourth place indeed. That's the lead. Well, I thought Stephen Parker Hamilton would run out of time to catch Tim Walters here, but he certainly hasn't. He's there on the final lap, and they've got some people to contend with just behind who are not in their class. That could interrupt the fight, but this is encouraging for Stephen Parker Hamilton, who is right there now, battling for the AM win.
Yeah, I think he's going to get it. If he can stay as close as he is going on to the Dottingham, I think he'll get this. And I seriously do. Neil Kennedy's just run a little bit wide. He's going to now have a problem keeping up with these guys in front. Again, they're using the draft as much as he can. Dudley, again, is coming through. It's very stop-start for Ryan Dudley. It's kind of get the job done, make a mistake. Get the job done, make a mistake. And that's kind of been the theme of race one. I'll hope he'll look for a kind of different theme going into race two. But, Neil Kennedy in the wall.
Yeah, that's fourth place, but he's pretty safe in that position unless he's going to get caught by Shane Banninger quite a lot through this straight now, because it is, well, it's not straight, but it's a long flat-out section, and he'll lose a lot of time up there now. Alpha second close again, but Mark Brown doesn't get overtaken by Dan Wareham, who I think now is waiting for that final straight of the lap and at the final moment. So, yeah, I think that's what we're waiting for here now between these two. By the way, what I said earlier on, we are limited to 3 laps here, so even though we can complete 3 laps, more than 3 laps in 25 minutes, we are just doing 3 laps in both races. We are still doing the top 6 reverse though, and I believe at the moment the top 4 in Pro would be involved in it, and so would the top 2 in Pro-Am. That's what they're fighting for, Peter Duke and Ruminay at the moment, in that battle for second in Pro-Am, but I think it's more importantly the battle for 6th overall.
Yeah, I think this is going to be very, very close going down to the end of the end of the straight to see how this one pans out, as is Parker Hamilton and Walters. I think this is going to be another battle we're going to be flicking between to see where they are once they come down the Dottingham, because as we know, it's from now onwards on this race circuit, stay where you are. Don't do anything silly. There's nowhere you can overtake cleanly. Stay where you are. You might as well stay where you are and try and make a move on the Dottingham. It doesn't matter who's behind you, who's around you. Stay where you are. There's nowhere they can do it here, you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the best port of call here. Oh, I was jumping over the curves there. Ryan Dudley trying to move forward. Don't forget, he won't get there in time for the reverse grid, but he will just improve his grid position for race 2 if he makes a couple of overtakes, and he'll certainly want to, because as things stand, he's losing a hatful of points to Scott McFall, currently leading the race. There is Adam McCain. Yeah, he's got back going again there. And Peter Duke has got rid of Ruminay a little bit here, so that battle for 6th place might well become a little bit more complicated with Alan McCain getting involved, but Ruminay has dropped a bit of crucial time here late on.
Yeah, I think the thing is as well, it depends on how fast McCain is. As we know with Duke, again, we're talking about the same thing. There's not many places to overtake now. We might as well wait till the dot on the hose. So we'll see on that one. We've got the leader, Scott McFall, just coming on there now. So he's gone around Galgenkopf and on his way down that straight away. We've got obviously Mark Brown down. We have got Mark Brown. Dan Wareham must have made a mistake. He has and gone off the side of the circuit, unfortunately. So that could be where it is stationary as it is at the moment, because I don't think he's going to have enough time. But it is going to be here with Peter Duke ruminating, and also Alan McCain, who's going to get that pole position for race number 2.
And they're all slowing down a bit here. Alan McCain feels the pressure. He knows that this might be where he loses the all-important top 6. And so there's 3 drivers fighting for 2 places. You don't want to find yourself on the wrong end of this. As, by the way, Tim Walters has gone off from the lead in AM. Stephen Parker Hamilton looks like he's going to a victory there. And there is Walters. Don't know what happened, but there they are in the background. Peter Duke goes past McCain, and Rumine pushes him past. And so maybe now Rumine will go for second in the class as well. Meanwhile, Scott McFall comes round the final corner, by the way, to win the opening race of the night here at the Nordschleife, ahead of Mark Brown, Dan Wareham. Who's going to be 4th? It will be the Pro-Am winner. Who's going to be 2nd in Pro-Am? Duke and Rumine go side by side, just ahead of Alan McCain here, who will desperately want that 6th place back to get into the reverse grid. Here they go into the final Tiergarten. He can't quite get there, McCain. There's one more corner, the final turn now. He's not going to dive down the inside there, and Peter Duke will come 2nd in Pro-Am, will he? Just ahead of Rumine and then Alan McCain, and that sets the top 6 reverse for the 2nd race.
Yeah, and in the AMs, it looks like Steve Parker Hamilton did get that job done. As I say, Waters did go off the side of the circuit, so we'll have to... unfortunately, we can't go back and have a look and see on that one. Atkinson is going to come along and get that 2nd place. And it looks like Michael Elms is going to grab 3rd. Where did Tim Waters end up? He's down all the way at 4th in class. But Elms is going to come through and take the 3rd place there. So great job from Michael Elms. Just kept the car on the race circuit and 2nd, 3rd.
I don't know how he's managed that, to be honest, but he has. And I've seen. I don't know how Tim Walters has managed that, I should say, to clarify. Michael Elms, though, on the podium. So that's a good result for him. And there goes Tim Walters. He'll be very disappointed with this race in the way that it's gone. Only been at one of the races so far this season. Back again, thankfully, for his 2nd appearance at the Nordschleife. I want to bring your attention to something in AM, actually, that we didn't really talk about at the time, because we didn't get a chance to fully go through the championship standings in AM before the race. However, Adrian Hadfield was the championship leader. He's about to come across the line in 20th place overall after having a crash off the start. In fact, he didn't even make it to the first turn before having a crash in this race. Terry Atkinson finishing in at 2nd place. That will jump him ahead, and Adrian Hadfield takes a big hit as far as championship points goes in this race. That was not a good result for him.
Yeah, I'll be very surprised. See what happens with race 2 and see whether or not he can withhold sort of that lead that he has got. We're just waiting for Lee Sadler to come over the line before we bring you up the results. Be interested to see where they're at after this and who is where. And I've got a funny feeling it could be very, very close in that championship. So we'll have to see what goes on that one as Lee Sadler just comes around Galgenkopf before he goes on to the Dottinger Ho.
I think it's the helpful thing a little bit about this point system, actually, is that it keeps things very, very close indeed. Going into today, Scott McFall only had 6 points over Ryan Dudley, although with that race 1 result, it will probably be a bit bigger than that. Van Forster only had 2 points over Scott Brown, but he's not here, so Scott Brown will have taken that over today in that race. And Adrian Hadfield only had 6 points over Terry Atkinson. So it's all getting a lot closer. Scott Bell was 3rd, by the way. He retired from that race. So it's great news for Terry Atkinson. Even if he didn't win, Stephen Parker Hamilton will have gained some points, of course, as he did. But he didn't go to the Oschersleben round, and so will be a little bit further down naturally. It was a good opening race, though. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in race 2, to be honest, because the pros will have a lot of work to do early on to make their way through the field, and especially Scott McFall didn't have to do any overtaking in that race.
No, just Lee. Oh, that would have been a shame. They'd gone and stacked it right before the line. But yeah, Scott's obviously going to have to do a little bit more work now. So this could be a very interesting development to see how they get on. But here's the results from Heat 1.
Here we go. It is Scott McFall who is the race winner ahead of Mark Brown by 6 seconds. He saw off Daniel Wareham in the end there, actually, and rounding out the podium. Then it's Scott Brown, who won Pro-Am ahead of Peter Duke and Rumine, who rounded out the podium. Alan McCain couldn't quite get into that all-important top 6. Ryan Dudley did get into 8th at least to improve his race 2 starting position. Stephen Parker Hamilton and Terry Atkinson rounded out the top 10 as the Am winners and runners-up. Then it was Neil Kennedy and Shane Bellinger, the final drivers, within a minute of the race win. Chris Barnes finished 13th, ahead of Michael Elms and Lee Rylands rounding up the top 15. Tim Walters was 16th, ahead of Callum Marlam, then Anthony Jones in 18th. Ian Hadfield, John Johnson and Lee Sadler were the only drivers to finish the race. Then Peter Woodmore and Scott Bell 1 lap down, Newton Carvalho 2 laps down after not even getting to the end of the opening lap.
There's going to be a couple of people that are going to have to sit back and think, what have I got to do differently, right? And really kind of want to make sure you complete the race. I'm sure everybody in this grid is not on Nords for the first time, right? Let's be real. They all would have done some form of Nords race. And it's great in officials for an SR and IR gain if you want to, because obviously it's a long circuit. You do have people make mistakes. So all of these that didn't finish race 1, Newton Carvalho, very experienced driver, seen him before in multiple series. He's going to try and look and get this job done and try and finish race number 2. That's the most important thing, I think, to try and get race 2 finished to get some points. Get it finished. That's got to be the most important thing with them.
You've got to make sure you get to the end, and I mean, it should be not too difficult considering we are on a no damage lobby, of course. If you're not familiar with the rules of this series, there isn't any damage that these cars can actually receive, so you should be able to stay in the race a little bit longer than you otherwise might. And don't forget about the standing starts. Not normal in sports car racing at all, actually, even though these are very low-level production cars. It's not really normal for us to do standing starts, but it certainly does create some interesting moments. Certainly saw that at Navarra more than Oschersleben, actually, although we did get our fair share of that at Oschersleben as well. It does make things interesting off of the start. Well, we have just crossed forward into the second race. Both races, as I mentioned before, 3 laps to date. Normally, we get a 20-minute first race and a 25-minute second race, but we're not quite getting that here this time around. Getting a 3-lap race both times as the drivers get onto the grid.
There he is, pole man.
Quite some urgency as well, actually. Yeah, there is the pole driver, Rumine, who did that great overtake right towards the end of that opening race. Himself just ahead of Alan McCain. And that got him into the pole position here, ahead of Peter Duke and Scott Brown, the others who joined him on the podium of Pro-Am. Mark Brown, Daniel Wareham and Scott McFall will be the others who've been reversed, and they've been shoved further down the field, as opposed to those front 3 who have been shunted upwards. Then the rest of the field are in the positions that they finished in for that opening race. So it's basically the results from the previous race, but with that top 6 reversed. Here we go. The second race here at the Nordschleife underway. It's a very slow start for Rumine, and into the wall straight away there for Daniel Wareham, that is. And there's contact for Rumine as well. Four wide off the first corner. It's going to be disaster. A track blockage, surely. They somehow make it through, do they? Oh, not really. It's a real disaster off the start. Shane Bellinger's involved. All of them are involved. So many involved. Stephen Parker Hamilton, the AM winner from the first race, is involved as well. What a disastrous start that is for absolutely everybody. We'll have another look at the end of the race, but my goodness, that was not what we were expecting to see. Peter Duke is the only Pro-Am driver left inside the top 4 positions. This is quite remarkable as Terry Atkinson, the new AM leader, goes off.
I don't really know what to say. I'm not quite sure why we were 4 wide, but I think that was affected by Rummenigge not getting off the start, and that kind of caused the bottleneck effect where everything went a little bit Pete-Tong after that, and yeah, that was just chaotic.
It's the pro lead here, by the way, we're fighting for, as well as Peter Duke's Pro-Am lead, where he's just trying to stay out of trouble with contact, and you don't want to make it there.
He's tapped him again.
He has. Yeah, he has. He's just got a bit wide at Arenberg. He saved himself from the gravel, but he has lost the lead. Here goes Mark Brown on the outside now. Side by side with Dan Wareham. No, can't quite get it done. As you go through this downhill section, you can go side by side down here through the Fox Road because it is a flat-out section, but it maybe isn't the best idea every time, and that's what Mark Brown has decided this time as they go over the top at Andau Post. Peter Duke goes a little bit wide, but it's a decent start for the leaders. These are the guys that got through the opening lap without problems, or the opening sector without problems, because they avoided the carnage.
Yeah. I don't know if they were involved in the carnage and they managed to get their way through and sort of squeeze through like a slippery worm trying to go through a hole. I'm not entirely sure whether or not there was a little bit of argy-bargy. We will have a catch-up at the end and look at the start again and see, well, try and decipher it between us. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do that, but we'll have a good look and see what we can do. But yeah, it just all kicked off. Scott McFall trying to go at the inside of the Rylands, does manage to get the job done at the end of the day there, so fair play to Scott on that one. But yeah, so, Dan Wareham leading, Mark Brown with Ryan Dudley behind him, Simtech 1, 2, 3. I'm expecting Wareham to pull away. He has looked the quicker of the three here, but it's whether or not people can keep up. Tim Walters has gone round as well here, and Michael Elms. No! Oh, bro!
Straight into Peter Woodmore, who has gone for the big crash there now. And Michael Elms, by the way, is having a few connection problems. That's why he keeps jumping around the order, falling down and then jumping back up again. So don't mind him. But that was not a good rejoin, I'm afraid. Just poor miss that was. At Callanhard, just after Callanhard, so that was not ideal at all. But we are underway. The opening lap is in full swing as Scott McFord is trying to retake some of those places that he lost off the start. There he goes on the outside of Neil Kennedy. Chris Barnes. He makes his way through on there, and so he moves up into 5th place. But crucially, he's behind crucial rivals like Ryan Dudley, who started the day just 6 points behind him. Daniel Wareham started the day just 17 behind him. Mark Brown hasn't been here at all the rounds so far, so that doesn't quite worry him as much. But he is losing points as things stand, and he's quite a few seconds behind these battles. Yeah,
he is at the moment, partly because he's locked in, isn't he? Behind where is he? He's got Chris Barnes trying to get up, but push him along here. So Scott McFall's got a lot of work to do to try and clear Barnes. Again, it's the same scenario as we spoke about in race 1. You can be quicker in the middle section. It ain't going to make a blind bit of difference when you're on a straight and these cars come at you faster than what you can go. So be interested to see if Barnes can stay with McFall, and we'll keep an eye on what happened there once again. Atkinson looks like he's had a little bit of a problem again, but Terry Atkinson is now all the way down behind Michael Elms in 20th place. So there's been a lot that have really struggled right at the beginning. Scott Bell's making great progress, had a terrible race 1, but is now sitting 4th in class in 16th overall. And Ryan Dudley has just made a mistake and is now going to get overtaken by Scott McFall and possibly Chris Barnes.
I think he has got the speed, Ryan Dudley, but he just keeps making mistakes because it is such a difficult circuit. If you don't have it absolutely nailed, mistakes will come. And there they go down the inside. This could be tricky. This is not a battle for last position, but it does make your life a lot more difficult if you get overtaken by people that you need to repass a little bit later on, especially if you're not going to get any points for it. And I'm afraid Ryan Dudley has been overtaken there. He's trying to stick himself down the inside again. Can't do it.
No.
Here again now. He's all offline just up ahead here. And Ryan Dudley looking again up the inside now. Can't quite do it, although he's sort of scared the driver out wide into the grass and into nearly a very big spin there. Neil Kennedy, who's 4th in Pro-Am.
Oh, Neil, don't come on that quick. You're going to go round now. Oh, Neil. You saved it, you jumped coming through the curb, and then unfortunately it just all went Pete's on when you were trying to get back on the circuit. So, you know, lesson learned, don't try and really come back onto the track at that kind of speed.
Yeah, it won't end very well, as we've just seen. So, unfortunately, he's gone back to the pit lane now. The 6 Pro-Ams now left to 5 on the circuit. As people, I'd imagine, getting a bit tired with this circuit in some ways as well, as crashes as well, making sure they they sort of sent down the order, etc. Here goes Alan McCain on Lee Rylands.
Oh, wait. They seem very rushed, don't they? It's like they've got to get the job done, just wait. You've got 3 laps and nearly 8 minutes a lap here. Just wait. There's very few places you can really make a clean overtake. Just wait and pick your place to get the done. Don't try and do it before anything crazy. You know, I don't get it. I don't get this. I think they need to settle a little bit. Just possibly calm down just a little bit.
Yeah, especially at that stage in the circuit when the back straight is so close, then yeah, it's doesn't really make much sense. But you want to make the move as quickly as possible, because then I think McCain especially will feel that he's quicker than Rylands based on the race 1 results, and he will feel any time spent behind him is lost time in terms of this race. He tries to catch Ryan Dudley and those up ahead of him as well. So through he goes, but he may have gone through a bit too quickly here, because Rylands can get back in the slipstream and come back at him again now, unless he's just going to be pushed here. And I think they are just going to push one another down the straight now. And yes, they do. So Kane has got away with that, because actually he went through a bit too quickly on the straight, and Lee Rylands could have re-overtaken him there. Yeah,
if Rylands had pulled out by the time they got to the Bilston Bridge, and then they would have been running side by side, which doesn't always work out. And I've seen multiple times it doesn't work out. So, yeah, I'm glad they kind of settled back in here. Mark Brown is still behind Dan Wareham, but whether or not they're going to fight, because they didn't fight in race 1, so I'm not, in hindsight, expecting them to fight in race 2. I think that could be a set order here just to try and get to the end, unless one of them makes a mistake, and whether or not it's going to be Wareham or Brown. I think that's going to stay as it is. Dudley, however, on the other hand, Ruminig's gone round.
Who's that?
Ruminig.
It's a huge crash for Ruminig, who gets back on at the Hatzenbach from 3rd, and he will stay 3rd in prime. But that was a huge crash, and he'll be very thankful damage is off.
You saw all the damage take place, though. You saw it all sort of go apart and then come back onto the car. I'm wondering if damage was on for this one, how many cars would have finished and how many cars wouldn't have done by the end of, especially that first opening flurry of, well, chaos, really, as Scott Brown's trying to make his way through John Johnston and Anthony Jones here.
I reckon it could have been lower numbers for sure at the end of the races, with damage on, of course, but that's why we don't have it on, indeed. Scott Brown makes his way through there. He's just making some progress here on some cars who are not in his class, off in Pro-Am currently for the race 1 winner. Further up, there is a battle for the lead going on, believe it or not. Dan Wareham has been kept honest by Mark Brown here, and we may well see this battle continue right the way through to the very end of this race, because we're not too far from half distance now, nearly halfway round the second of 3 laps, and Brown, after struggling in race 1 compared to Wareham, is right with him this time.
Yeah, he's 71 points, give or take, with Mark Brown over Dan Wareham in the championship. Dan's obviously ahead. I'd love to see them fight. I really would. Go for it, Mark. I just don't know if they're going to. I really don't know if they're going to, because of Wareham staying behind Brown for race 1.
Well, I think that won't play too much into the factor. I think more the factor here will be Brown waiting maybe for the final lap. Now, I don't think he's just going to let Wareham win the race, but I do think he could end up waiting for the final lap, because we didn't really see it executed very well before. But I think the best way to do it is the final lap, then make your move on the final straight, and you'll be able to get the pass pretty easy, as long as we saw that on the camp, you don't go through too quickly, because Lee Rylands did have the chance to come back at him there, but he elected not to.
Yeah, I don't know. You hope they battle, and I think that's what we'd love to see whether or not here. Neil Carvalho has had a rotten race 1. He didn't even finish race 1, and is now behind Ruminig for 10th overall. 7th in class for Cavallo. First time out in the series here. We've got Callum Milam leading the arms, but he's got the current championship leader Hadfield behind him. John Johnson is facing the other way, so that's never good for him. But we could have a nice little tidy arm battle here.
We certainly could. Callum Milam just ahead of Adrian Hadfield, trying to recover from what he would think, I suppose, is a pretty poor race one, considering he is championship leader. It goes straight through here, though. It's the long run up the hill. Where are they at the moment? I can't quite tell. Oh, just that's Bergberg there, just through Bergberg. So not a very good run through Exmoor, actually, for Callum Milam, because you don't normally see moved into there. Well, but I suppose with a bad run, you can lose places very quickly. So Adrian Hadfield goes through, and now Callum Milam's next job is to stay with him. And Ruminet's gone for another crash.
Again, yeah. He was side by side with Cavallo at one point, and then unfortunately he's just sort of dropped. No.
He's all right.
Yeah.
As long as he didn't go too far back there, he was okay. Scott Brown, I think it was, who squeaked past him. But, yeah, very nervy moments indeed for everybody as Adrian Hadfield continues to lead in just ahead of Milam, who really gained through the slipstream there and might now have a go just before the carousel. No, he's going to stay behind. And maybe now the games will start in AM2 and they'll start thinking about that final lap and where they want to be going on to the final lap, because if you are ahead on that final straight on the last lap, it's going to be difficult to defend.
Yeah, I do agree. And there's also a nice little battle for third here. Anthony Jones, Atkinson and Elms. So the AMs look like they're going to be the ones battling it out. The Pro-Ams, Duke's leading, Barnes second, Brown, Rumenegg, Bellinger, Kennedy's out. The lead in the pros for Ware and Brown as they are. And Jones nearly popped out the carousel. Not out the carousel, nearly popped out and nearly got it all wrong.
Yeah. And he's going to be overtaken here by Michael Elms as well, as he side by side on the way towards Horact here, the highest point on the Nordschleife. Round the outside through the first pot, gives you the inside at the second, but Elms doesn't want to risk all of that. And he stays behind for now. Meanwhile, Ryan Dudley getting overtaken here. This is not a battle for his class positions.
Yeah, him and Barnes have been having a right little ding-dong. I think he was trying to have a go. Barnes lets him through that time. I'm wondering if that was a slowdown that Barnes just got. That's why he's kind of lost an absolute chunk of position of time over Dudley there. So I think that was a slowdown. We saw him run wide a little bit going off the circuit. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on whether or not Barnes can come back. But it doesn't really matter. As I say, that's not for a class position. That's just for basic track position there. Parker Hamilton has unfortunately had another bit of a moment. He's gone round off the side of the circuit as well. But Hadfield is going to struggle now because he's got Milam this close currently at the moment. And they're going on to that dotting a hoe.
Well, is Milam going to go through here and believe that he can pull away? Or is he going to stay behind and play the long game? Let's wait and see as they go into the final straight here before dotting a hoe itself. Into Strabon's strikes. First of all, the right-hander.
Oh, he's made a mistake.
And Hadfield's off.
Oh.
Very wide from Hadfield. That's an opportunity that Milam can't say no to. And here goes Scott Brown as well. This is great news for Milam as he now can break away from Adrian Hadfield.
Yeah, one mistake there. It looks like Rumenegg may have gone round again. Oh, he's upside down with wheels flapping everywhere.
Oh, my goodness.
He got to go.
We said damage is off, but you got to stay on all fours, otherwise you won't be able to get back down again. And Rumeneg's in the middle of the road, upside down.
Yeah,
he had a disastrous second race.
Yeah, he's got to go back to the pits. You can't get it back on the roof. No matter how much you try and rev the throttle, you ain't getting it back. Scott Brown just going past Milan there. Peter Duke has got Dudley tucked up behind him. Again, both part of the Simtech stable. So I wouldn't be surprised if Duke might let Dudley through, or they've been permitted to fight. That's going to be the thing we'll have to keep an eye out for. But Milam has got that help from Brown for that draft, but Hadfield is not letting him get away in that AM lead at the moment.
Certainly isn't. Here we go into the final couple of corners. Hadfield is lurking, and I think that Marlon would have preferred to be pushed by Brown there, but obviously Brown's not going to do that. He's looking forward and wants more positions. He's on the podium at the moment in Pro-Am. It's an outside chance of him getting any more, but it's worth a go. So over the final line for the penultimate time, I should say, goes Callum Marlon ahead of Adrian Hadfield. That's one of the close battles in the lead of a class. Peter Duke is not within one of those. He's 3.5 seconds ahead of Chris Brown, but he does... not Chris Brown. He's not in this race. Chris Barnes, indeed, who is 2.5 seconds behind. And there's a spin in the background for Alan McCain.
Yeah, unfortunately, him and Nords is not loving it. I didn't ever think Alan McCain ever loved Nords. Whenever the track selection come up, the Nords was mentioned, and McCain was like, nope, don't want to go there. So clearly he's having a bit of a rough time. Duke's still got Dudley tucked in right behind him. Brown and Wareham are still as they are. And again, I don't feel that's going to change, but Dudley and Duke is.
Here we go, side by side. Duke should just let him have this one, and does. Maybe even can take some slipstream from Ryan Dudley, but I think the driver second place in the Pro Championship, Ryan Dudley, will be disappointed with today. He was behind Scott McFall in the opening race, of course, by quite a few positions, but that's no real fault of his because everybody was behind Scott McFall as he won the race. This race, though, he might be a bit more disappointed with. 10 seconds behind McFall, and I think it's the mistakes and the crashes and Nordschleife biting him that has really cost him points in this round.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. He's off the side of the circuit.
Yeah, there is a stage at the Nordschleife where you've got to forget about your speed somewhat and just focus on staying on the road, because that will gain you places with others struggling around this track naturally.
Yeah, he's got all the pace for days, right? Oh, argy-bargy as well, but he's got the pace for days as Dudley, but if you can't control it, you're in trouble. There's no point being Max Verstappen and driving like Nikita Mazepin. It's not going to, there's no point. He's got to get it under control. But it's on the last lap. It's kind of, well, done and dusted now, I suppose.
Yep, it should be. Well, the couple of leading battles we do have should still be interesting. And with Duke's attempted move there, he's actually got Chris Barnes a lot closer to him, but shouldn't be a worry. Aries Callum Marlon versus Adrian Hadfield. At the front of the field, it's Dan Wareham versus Mark Brown, and that will be very interesting to see as well. But I still think we'll be waiting for that final straight when things will really be settled, because it's John Johnson goes around Adnan Forst as well. He's down in 8th now.
Yeah, we got Newton Cavalier going with McCain. McCain's there. Then we got the battle in the arms with Milam and Hadfield. I'm wondering if Milam's going to be pushing to the point of where it could lead to a mistake, because he knows Hadfield cannot be close going onto the dotting O, because it's game over, right? Hadfield's just going to say thank you very much, as long as he doesn't do anything crazy and make it too early. Back up front, yeah, I'd love to see these two fight. I don't know if they're going to. As you can see, Brown is just pushing Wareham along here.
He is. No point going through for the moment. You'll just get drafted back past again on the back straight. So Mark Brown decides to push him up the hill. It's going to be a grandstand finish there. Could be an AM as well. I think Marlon is doing the same to Hadfield as they just make their way into Bergvik now, and they're about to go onto the straight. Oh no, it's gone wrong for Adrian Hadfield. That could be the race. Callum Marlon moves forward into first position at the expense of Adrian Hadfield, who gets into the grass at Bergvik and will lose time all the way up the hill.
Yeah, McCain's side by side with Cavalier there. I'm wondering if Milam's got the pace to stay ahead now. Can he stay ahead of Hatfield for that win? That's going to be the question. It's 2.4 seconds, nothing to say that he hasn't, and there's no disrespect to Callum. I'm sure he's got the pace to be able to do it, but one mistake and Hatfield's going to be back at him. We've seen how easy it can change here at Nords. So Callum's got to be on it 100% now for the rest of this lap. He's got to concentrate. No thinking about shopping. No thinking about what he's going to have to eat. No thinking about going out. He's got to sit there and he's got to concentrate on what he's got left. Hit marker after marker after marker, and this AM win could be his. And for the top two, however, still as they are.
Yeah, the concentration is always the difficulty, especially around this circuit. Although I do feel that the relentless corners do help you a little bit with that. It's just once you're in the groove around here, it does feel very good, and it does become an enjoyable circuit to drive. But if not, then you are in a bit of trouble. And through YouTube corner they go, as it's called sometimes. In the final few parts of the circuit, there's Brunchen, as it's actually called. And then down the hill now towards the Flansgarten. The jump, as it is really. Have a look at this. This is the camera angle. Just hop over the crest. So these cars are not quite fast enough, really, to hop, but most cars do. By the way, Battle in Pro-Am might have just sprouted up here. Peter Duke has lost some time somewhere, and Chris Barnes is right there.
Yeah, so we're going to have 3 runs for the lead of each class going on, hopefully, maybe. Depends on what Milam does. You know, we've got the App Pros, we've got the Pro-Ams. Hadfield's got to bury that a little bit better than that, because otherwise this is it for him. He's not going to be able to get there. But Peter Duke and Chris Barnes are now, I'm sure Barnes should stay where he is going on to the Dottinger Ho. I think that's the sensible thing, as is Brown and Wareham.
I think we're going to see... Oh, Scott McFall's off the road at 3rd place. Will that change anything just up ahead for these guys? No, it won't. So, out the final corner, onto the back straight for Dan Wareham and Mark Brown. This is the moment, the final lap of the 2nd race in the TX Jordan GR86 series at the Tanso Racing Group. It's time to decide who wins race 2. And Mark Brown decides it's going to be him. Moves out to the right-hand side, moves past Dan Wareham, uses... or makes sure he doesn't get side drafted here, and now he's going to pull to the middle of the road. He wants the left-hand side, as he will have to defend again. It's not over just yet. Here goes Dan Wareham again, back into the slipstream, looking to re-overtake all over again here. But does he have the legs? Does he get through here under the bridge? It's looking difficult for him now. He might run out of straight. Here he goes to the right-hand side. He's got to go for this. He's got to try and win this race, but he can't quite do it unless he breaks very, very late into the Tiergarten and goes for a move. He can't do it. Mark Brown dives deep on the brakes and should have this from here into the final corner. He will win race 2 here at the Nordschleife, just ahead of Dan Wareham. And here's the Pro-Am battle. Peter Duke has made a mistake on the final lap, allowing Chris Barnes to try and take the win away from him. Up over the curve for Duke. There's contact. There's more. But Peter Duke just about holds the inside. There's more contact, and Chris Barnes goes through. He will controversially win the Pro-Am race as Peter Duke goes for a spin on the final lap.
Boy, oh boy, on that one. Is he gonna? He should stay ahead of Scott Brown though for Duke. Yeah, probably not going to be too happy about that. But there we go. Milam, I think, is going to hang on into the AM win. So well done to Callum Milam. Hadfield made that one mistake, and Milam said, "Thank you very much. I love that."
Well, this is quite a remarkable finish. Meanwhile, for the AMs, it is at Callum Milam who hangs on ahead of Adrian Hadfield, but that was remarkable. We'll have a look at the end of the race, of course, at that last instant, and I want to have a look at the start as well before we leave you tonight as well, because that was a very interesting start indeed. We'll go back and look at it at the end, but good drive from Callum Milam in the end, but I would say good recovery for Adrian Hadfield too. After a pretty disastrous first race, he's gained some of those points back on Terry Atkinson, who himself did a good job, and so we haven't seen the championship standings yet, but he might well be the championship leader at the end of this round.
Yeah, we'll have a look at the stand-ins after this race. We'll bring you up to date where everybody is. Shane Bellinger's coming over the line to take 4th in class. Not too bad, I suppose, for him. Steve Parker Hamilton will be the last of the runners here. So Hamilton in that AM class, and we'll see what goes on as he continues to come over the line. So yeah, race the circuit, don't race the people around you. I think lesson learnt for some of these on Nords.
Maybe that's the lesson to be learnt from here. Yeah, it's the end of the race though. As we have a look at the results. Great finish actually between Mark Brown and Dan Wareham. Ends up in that order. Brown beating Wareham by just a quarter of a second ahead of Scott McFall. who recovered from starting 6th to finish 3rd. Ryan Dudley finished 4th, ahead of the Pro-Am winner Chris Barnes, who controversially passed Peter Duke there. He was even overtaken by Lee Rylands at the end. Alan McCain couldn't quite get through. Scott Brown got another podium, ahead of Newton Carvalho, who recovered very well from outside the top 20 to finish 10th. Callum Marlin won in Am, ahead of Adrian Hadfield, Terry Atkinson, Tim Walters, Anthony Jones, Michael Elms and John Johnston, all in a row there in the Am field. Shane Bellinger finished 18th overall ahead of Stephen Parker Hamilton. Scott Bell and Rumine were 1 lap down. Lee Sadler was 2 laps down. Neil Kennedy and Peter Woodmore retired after the opening lap, or before it was even finished, in fact. So that is your results at the end. Let's have a look at the couple of the key moments. First of all, the end of the race. Well, I'm not sure in which way round you want to do this, James. It's up to you, really, but the end of the race with that battle for the Pro-Am win and the start as well.
Yeah, I want to catch the start again just to see. I think Rummenigge just gets off very, very slow.
Yeah.
Doesn't he? He doesn't really get off the line, and that leads to a 4 wide. Wareham's already in the wall there. And then it just kind of piles up behind them. Look, they're 4 wide again. One's across the middle, one's across the other side. And then it's just absolute chaos. Scott Brown is in there. Alan McCain's trying to weave his way through. He's just about to hit Rummenigge there.
Yeah, Rummenigge rejoins there when I would argue he shouldn't have done. And there, one of the drivers rejoining Scott Brown when he shouldn't have done too.
That's
that caused
Bellinger.
Probably... excuse me, yeah. That's probably elongated the accident a bit more than it needed to be, unfortunately. But look at that. I mean, to be fair, when you are one of those drivers further back, where do you go at the Nordschleife? There's no runoff to throw yourself onto to get past the accident. It's you all just pile in, really.
Yeah, brake, shout it on the radio and hope that everybody else stops. I think that's the thing. But it was just all down to the fact that Rummenigge just did not get off the line, and it just caused this backlog, I suppose, of all the cars behind him, and he just didn't go anywhere. You know, you can hear the engine revving, but then he just fluffs, it just doesn't move, and Wareham's got this absolutely amazing start on the outside. I don't know where he thought he was going to go, mind you, but he went for it anyway. And then this is the knock-on effect, isn't it? It's really weird to sit back and watch these guys go for it, and then of course Rummenigge goes round again, and again he ends up in a 4 wide situation with the 2 cars on the outside. So yeah, not a great, I suppose, not a great start for some of them, isn't it? Because the Simtech guys get involved, and then it all just goes Pete-on.
There around goes Alan McCain into the wall. You can see on the very left-hand side, along with Rummenigge. And also Scott Brown as well, the Pro-Am Championship leader. There's Adrian Hadfield. Now, be interesting to see how he made his way through all this, because he went from quite far back to 2nd eventually in that race, and was leading for a period of it as well. And he was right involved in the midfield. So how did he pick his way through?
He's on the brakes. Right. Yeah, it's like, yeah. Oh, it's this moment here. Where does he go now? Does he get caught up? No, he avoids. He survives, but then they come to contact on the outside. So
I guess a lot of it overtakes would have come actually during normal racing in that case, because he's gained some there. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 cars just behind him there, although he is in the side of one of them. He made up a lot more positions than that, did Hadfield, by the end of the race. So, yeah, he certainly did well indeed. Now then...
I'm trying to see if we can find the Rummenigge on your roof.
Okay, we'll try and find that. I think that was round at the end of the lap. This is the Hatzenbach crash. I didn't realise he got help, though. That's a big hit. We'll be very thankful damage is off. As you commented at the time, you could just see how damaged the car was. Because in iRacing, even when the damage is off, it does stay on the car for a second or so before you're allowed to continue.
Oh, it's pushed again.
Ah, wow. Who was that? That was quite rude. Well, that wasn't his fault at all.
What's the rejoin situation?
Yeah, I think this rejoin was okay. He made sure to only reverse onto his side of the circuit and not the other. So just about got away with it. Now here is the crash. He gets on the grass himself and huge hit on the wall. Somebody with absolutely nowhere to go. And well,
that was Anthony Jones.
Okay, this will be quite a view. Oh, goodness me. That's the second time this season we've seen a car on its roof, and it's only round 3.
Yeah, do you know what would be an interesting view, though?
Oh, God. You've not got seasickness. Have a look at this.
Oh, look at that.
But, there wasn't actually that many rolls in the end, but as we said at the time, it's not an arcade game. You can't just pop yourself back on your wheels again by revving the engine, as Rumine tried to. Although it's a good idea if you are in that situation. Didn't end up being the right one. There's the leading battle in Pro in the end. That's exactly how Mark Brown consolidated his position at the front and as the winner of race 2 ahead of Dan Wareham. And while that was going on, the battle between Peter Duke and Chris Barnes was in full swing as well. Side by side in between them. And Chris Barnes ends up being the one who wins. I think Peter Duke, though, is going to be very, very disappointed with how this has ended up. Does he just get driven into here? Oh, that is sort of that awkward contact, really.
Yeah, and do you know the worst thing is as well? Peter Duke is literally hammering them brakes going into that corner, right? He knows he's entered in there far too quick and is literally trying to get that stopped, and he needs to get it stopped, but he goes on the brake so much that Barnes is then bottlenecked up behind him, and he doesn't really know where to go. He tries to get out the way, and there was contact. So I think, yeah, there's air on the side of caution. I think if we can have a look back from behind their car, you'll be able to see that obviously coming in, watch how much he goes onto the brakes. He goes in too quick. Contact again. He's on the brakes now, on the brakes, still on the brakes, still on the brake, still on the brakes. Barnes kind of doesn't anticipate him on the brakes so much, and then that's where the contact happens.
Yeah, I think that might be marked down as a racing incident at the end of when it's all said and done. I don't know, but that there was a bit of contact, but wasn't really either of them's at fault too much. Well, I think that's just about it, all the replays we need to have a look at. So let's have a look at the championship standings before we leave you tonight as well. Scott McFall is the championship leader still, as you would expect, and it's still Ryan Dudley, although he's been caught by Dan Wareham now. They're tied on points, followed by Alan McCain, Mark Brown, Lee Ryans and Newton Carvalho, who's only last because he's only been at one of the rounds. Next up, it's the AMS. Terry Atkinson leads the narrowest of the championship margins, just 3 points ahead of Aidan Hadfield. Then it's a pretty big gap back to Scott Bell, Anthony Jones and John Johnson. It is Stephen Parker-Hamilton, who's only been at a couple of the rounds so far, in 6th ahead of Michael Elms. Then Tim Walters, who is 8th ahead of Michael Walters, Callum Milam. Then John Kenny, Stuart Briley, Lee Sadler and Sean Clark, the 14 AMs who have been at rounds so far this season. Then Scott Brown, the biggest of the championship leaders by some distance, with 54 points over the rest of the field. Rumine second ahead of Bellinger, Kennedy and Forster, running at the top 5. Peter Duke not too far away from them. Chris Barnes, Craig Cordish, Brett Thack and Kieran Fletcher have only been at one of the rounds so far. Peter Wilmore didn't finish any of the races so far today, so he is on 0 points. That just about does it, though, for the TH Jordan GR86 series at the Tanso Racing Group this time around. It's been a fun round at the Nordschleife. Time to return next time to some shorter circuits for the remainder of the season. The circuit de Lebanon is next at the end of July, one of iRacing's newest additions, followed by another one of a relative new circuits, Aragon, followed by one of the oldest, Laguna Seca, coming up after that. It's a great schedule, and we'll have the next few weeks for you here on the JPP YouTube channel, as always. Final thoughts from you, James, here from the Nordschleife, just before we leave the broadcast here tonight. The longest circuit by quite some distance on this calendar, but it produced some decent racing and some dramatic finishes there, especially to race 2.
Yeah, I think this could be the longest corners race circuit than the first 3 rounds, to be fair. As we said, it's got 150 something corners on it. Most have only got sort of 10 to 20 at the most there, but I think this has been a learning curve for some. Some may have loved the Nords, but some may not. of loved the Nord, so we'll have to keep an eye out on that one. Just gives us enough time, guys, as well. Shout out the other sponsors of this evening. We've got Revive there. You can go and check them out at www.revive-uk.com on the internet. Revive offers, Swindon offers a mobile repair service for bumper scuffs, paint scratches and damaged alloy wheels. Fit and repairs around your schedule, so go and check them out on them ones. Then you've got Clark St James, dedication to maximum ROI for clients, and a commitment to lifelong learning drove his initial success. The company evolved from a one-man consultancy to a diverse agency. You can go and check them out at www.clarkstjames.com. Then for the after one on that one is TS Livery Designs. Livery Designs Chesterfield. Livery create for sim racing and full-size motorsport. Go and check them out on Facebook. You can go and search TH Liveries there. Then you've got TH Jordan, of course, the main sponsors. Work with a diverse range of clients throughout the UK and Ireland in a wide variety of sectors, including education, industry, churches and charitable organisations. So please go and check them out at www.thjordanltd.com. And that's everybody, I believe.
Yeah, I hope so. And a big thanks to all of those that make this broadcast and these races possible themselves as well. It's been a pleasure to cover it once again. I've been Ewan Leary alongside James Parfitt. And until next time on the TH Jordan GR86 series from the Tanso Racing Group at the Circuit de Lebanon, we'll see you in a week's time. Goodbye for now.